A 30-year-old black woman, Amelia Jackson, stood at the entrance of the luxury store, taking in the opulent surroundings. The marble floors gleamed under the bright lights, and the glass displays showcased an array of handbags, shoes, and accessories, each more extravagant than the last. This was supposed to be a special day for Amelia, a day when she would treat herself to something luxurious, something she had worked hard to earn. Amelia had been working tirelessly for the past decade, building her business from the ground up. She owned a successful tech company that had skyrocketed in value over the past few years, making her a self-made millionaire. But today, she wasn't Amelia Jackson, the tech mogul. She was just Amelia, a woman who wanted to buy herself a beautiful handbag and a pair of shoes to celebrate her success. Dressed in a simple white blouse, a pair of faded jeans, and comfortable sneakers, Amelia wasn't clad in the kind of outfit that typically graced the store's clientele. Her curly hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she wore no makeup, save for a swipe of lip balm. There was no expensive jewelry adorning her neck or wrists, no designer handbags slung over her shoulder. To anyone who didn't know her, she looked like an ordinary woman out for a casual day of shopping. And that was just the way Amelia liked it. As she walked further into the store, she felt the eyes of the sales staff on her. A woman, tall and slender with perfectly styled hair and a sharp, tailored suit, stood behind the counter. She regarded Amelia with a cold, assessing stare, her lips pressed into a thin line. A man, presumably the store manager, watched from a distance, his arms crossed over his chest as if waiting for some reason to dismiss her. Amelia offered the saleswoman a polite smile, trying to brush off the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. She approached the nearest display, a collection of handbags arranged artfully under soft lighting. She reached out to touch one, a sleek black leather bag with gold accents. But before her fingers could make contact, the saleswoman spoke. "What do you want, miss?" The woman's voice was laced with irritation, her tone dismissive. She didn't bother to hide her disdain as she eyed Amelia from head to toe. Amelia paused, taken aback by the woman's tone. "I'm just browsing," she replied calmly, her smile never wavering. The saleswoman rolled her eyes and crossed her arms, clearly unimpressed. "If you're just browsing, maybe you should start over there," she said, pointing to a corner of the store where the more affordable items were displayed. The handbags and shoes there were still luxurious by most standards, but they were the least expensive options in the store. The implication was clear. This was all Amelia could afford, in the saleswoman's opinion. Amelia felt a pang of anger and hurt, but she pushed it down. She had experienced moments like this before, moments when people underestimated her because of her appearance, because she didn't fit their narrow image of what a wealthy person should look like. She had long ago learned to handle such situations with grace. "Actually, I'm interested in this one," Amelia said, pointing to the black leather handbag she had initially been drawn to. The saleswoman's eyebrows shot up, and she let out a small, incredulous laugh. "That bag is very expensive," she said slowly, as if speaking to a child who didn't understand the value of money. "Are you sure you want to look at that one?" Amelia's smile faded. She locked eyes with the saleswoman, her voice steady as she replied, "I'm quite sure." The saleswoman hesitated, glancing over at the store manager, who gave a slight nod, seemingly approving her to show the bag. With a sigh, the saleswoman reluctantly unlocked the display case and handed the handbag to Amelia. She did so without the usual care and attention, practically shoving the bag into Amelia's hands. Amelia examined the handbag, turning it over in her hands, feeling the quality of the leather. It was a beautiful piece, something she knew she would cherish. But the experience was quickly being soured by the attitude of the staff. "I'd like to see some shoes as well," Amelia said, handing the bag back to the saleswoman. The woman didn't hide her annoyance as she led Amelia to the shoe section. She made a show of pointing out the cheapest pairs first, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "These might be more in your price range," she said with a smirk. Amelia ignored the comment, instead focusing on a pair of red stiletto heels that caught her eye. "Could I try these on in a size 8, please?" The saleswoman let out an exasperated sigh and disappeared into the back room, leaving Amelia standing alone in the middle of the store. Amelia could feel the manager's eyes on her, still watching from afar, and she could sense the judgment in his gaze. A few minutes later, the saleswoman returned with the shoes, barely concealing her disinterest as she handed them to Amelia. "Here you go," she said flatly. Amelia sat down on one of the plush benches and slipped off her sneakers, exchanging them for the elegant red heels. She stood up, admiring how they looked and how they made her feel. The shoes were perfect, just like the handbag, but the experience, the way she had been treated, was far from it. As Amelia walked around the store in the heels, testing their comfort, the saleswoman remained silent, offering no compliments or suggestions, just standing there with a bored expression on her face. Amelia could feel the weight of her gaze, the unspoken assumption that she was wasting her time. When Amelia finally sat back down, she looked up at the saleswoman, her expression unreadable. She carefully slipped off the red heels, handed them back to the saleswoman without a word, and put her sneakers back on. The saleswoman seemed momentarily confused, as if expecting Amelia to make a purchase. But Amelia said nothing, letting her actions speak louder than any words could. She stood up, gave the saleswoman a final, pointed look, and turned on her heel, walking toward the store's entrance. The manager watched her leave, a slight frown of confusion on his face. He seemed to realize too late that something was amiss, that perhaps they had misjudged this customer. Amelia didn't look back as she exited the store, the door closing behind her with a soft click. The sunlight greeted her warmly as she stepped back onto the bustling street. She took a deep breath, feeling the tension melt away as she walked down the sidewalk. There would be other stores, other places where she would be treated with the respect she deserved. Today, she had decided that her money and her dignity would be better spent elsewhere. As Amelia Jackson walked down the bustling streets of New York, her mind replayed the incident at the luxury store over and over again. The disdainful stares, the dismissive tone, the assumption that she didn't belong. It all left a bitter taste in her mouth. It was the 21st century, yet here she was, still being judged by the way she looked rather than who she was. This wasn't the first time Amelia had faced such treatment. As a successful businesswoman who preferred to dress casually when not in the office, she had encountered similar experiences before. But this time, the sting was sharper. Amelia knew that in a world driven by materialism, first impressions often hinged on appearances. What you wore, what car you drove, the jewelry you displayed. These were the shallow metrics by which people were judged, and Amelia despised it. She had built her empire from the ground up, and she was proud of her achievements. But she didn't flaunt her wealth. She didn't need to. Her worth was not in the clothes she wore but in the person she was. As she reflected on the incident, a resolve began to form within her. She couldn't let this slide. Not this time. It wasn't just about her. It was about the countless others who might have been treated the same way because they didn't fit the mold of what society deemed worthy. She needed to teach the store's staff a lesson, not out of spite, but to make them think twice before judging someone based on appearances. Over the next few weeks, Amelia planned meticulously. She researched the store's busiest and slowest days, finally settling on a Monday afternoon, a time when the store would likely be quiet, with minimal customers to distract the staff. The plan was simple but effective. She would return to the store, but this time, she would come prepared. A month after the incident, Amelia walked into the same luxury store, but she was far from the casually dressed woman they had dismissed. Today, she was draped in an elegant designer dress that hugged her figure perfectly, paired with a stunning pair of heels. Her neck and wrists glittered with diamonds, and she carried a handbag that cost more than what many people earned in a month. Her hair was styled to perfection, and her makeup was subtle yet sophisticated. Behind her walked her secretary, a sharp-looking woman in a tailored suit, and her bodyguard, a tall, imposing man who moved with the grace of someone who knew how to handle any situation. They all exuded an air of wealth and authority, and as they entered the store, the atmosphere changed immediately. The same saleswoman and manager were on duty, and as soon as they saw Amelia, their faces lit up with wide, eager smiles. "Good afternoon, ma'am," the saleswoman greeted her, her tone dripping with politeness. The manager quickly followed suit, offering a deep nod of acknowledgement. "Welcome back to our store." Amelia could see the recognition in their eyes. They remembered her, but today, they saw her through a different lens. They didn't dare dismiss her now. The difference in their treatment was stark, and it only reinforced Amelia's belief that they needed to be taught a lesson. "Good afternoon," Amelia replied, her voice calm and composed. She offered a slight smile, but there was no warmth in it. The saleswoman and manager scrambled to assist her, clearly eager to make a sale. Amelia didn't waste time. She requested to see the most expensive black leather handbag, the red stiletto heels she had tried on during her last visit, and 3 other handbags and shoes in different colors. She also selected a few outfits that caught her eye. The saleswoman and manager worked quickly, bringing out each item with the utmost care. Their earlier disdain replaced with a fawning eagerness. They showered her with compliments, pointing out the fine craftsmanship of each item, the exclusivity of the pieces, and how well everything suited her. Amelia played along, nodding and commenting as she tried on the shoes and inspected the handbags. As the items piled up, the saleswoman's eyes gleamed with anticipation, and the manager hovered nearby, ready to step in at a moment's notice. Amelia could see the dollar signs flashing in their minds. They believed they were about to make a significant sale, one that would likely be the highlight of their day, if not their week. After what seemed like hours of trying on shoes, inspecting handbags, and assessing the clothes, Amelia made her decision. She placed everything she had chosen, 5 handbags, 4 pairs of shoes and several outfits, on the counter. The total amount came to just over $50,000. The saleswoman could hardly contain her excitement as she began to tally up the items. Amelia turned to her secretary and gave a small nod. The secretary, perfectly composed, handed her a sleek black briefcase. Amelia opened it slowly, revealing stacks of cash neatly arranged inside. The sight of so much money in one place seemed to stun the saleswoman and the manager. They exchanged quick glances, both realizing that this was no ordinary customer. "I'll be paying in cash," Amelia said smoothly, her eyes never leaving theirs. The saleswoman's hands trembled slightly as she began to count the money, her excitement barely concealed. The manager, too, joined in, carefully going through each stack of bills, making sure everything was accounted for. It took nearly 2 hours to count the money, every bill meticulously inspected to ensure it was genuine. Amelia stood by patiently, her expression unreadable. Her bodyguard remained stoic, while her secretary checked her watch occasionally but said nothing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the manager looked up, his face flushed with the effort of concentration. "Everything seems to be in order," he said, his voice a little too eager. "Would you like us to wrap these items up for you?" Amelia looked at the saleswoman, then at the manager, and for a moment, the room was silent. She could see the expectation in their eyes, the hope that this would be a sale to remember. But instead of confirming the purchase, Amelia calmly closed the briefcase, snapping the locks shut with a decisive click. "Actually," she said, her voice cool and controlled, "I've changed my mind." The words hung in the air like a bombshell. The saleswoman's smile froze on her face, her eyes widening in shock. The manager's mouth dropped open slightly, as if he couldn't quite comprehend what he had just heard. "Excuse me?" the saleswoman stammered, clearly taken aback. "I've decided I don't want any of these items," Amelia repeated, her tone firm. She slid the briefcase back into her secretary's hands, who took it without a word. The manager finally found his voice. But everything is perfect, ma'am," he stuttered. "Are you sure? We've spent so much time." Amelia cut him off with a sharp look. "Yes, I'm quite sure," she said, her voice cold. "I don't need these items, and I certainly don't need to spend my money in a place where I'm treated poorly based on my appearance." The saleswoman's face turned pale as realization dawned on her. She remembered how she had treated Amelia on her previous visit, the disdain, the sarcasm, the dismissive attitude. And now, standing before her was the same woman, not only a potential customer but one who had the means to buy out the entire store if she wished. The saleswoman's heart sank as she understood the gravity of her mistake. Amelia turned on her heel and began to walk toward the door, her secretary and bodyguard following closely behind. The manager and saleswoman stood rooted to the spot, unable to do anything but watch as she left, the enormity of their lost opportunity weighing heavily on them. Just before reaching the door, Amelia paused and looked back at them. "Let this be a lesson," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had fought her way to the top. "You never know who's walking through that door. Treat everyone with respect, because today you missed out on more than just a sale. You missed out on a loyal customer." With that, she exited the store, the door closing softly behind her. Outside, the sunlight seemed brighter, the air fresher. Amelia felt a sense of satisfaction, not from humiliating the staff, but from knowing that she had made her point. She had shown them that wealth and worth couldn't be judged by appearances, and that respect was something that should be given freely, not based on superficial standards. As Amelia and her team walked away from the store, she knew she had done the right thing. She hadn't needed to raise her voice or make a scene. She had let her actions speak for themselves, and in doing so, she hoped she had planted a seed of change in the minds of those who had wronged her. Amelia's secretary glanced at her, a small smile playing on her lips. "That was quite a performance, Ms. Jackson," she said. Amelia smiled back, a genuine smile this time. "Sometimes actions speak louder than words," she replied. "And sometimes you have to remind people of that." Her bodyguard, ever the silent observer, gave a small nod of approval. Together, they walked down the street, leaving the store and its misguided staff behind. The lesson had been delivered, and Amelia knew that the next time someone like her walked into that store, they would think twice before making the same mistake. In a world where first impressions counted for so much, Amelia had made sure that hers would be remembered for all the right reasons. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of the story. If you felt the tension, the emotion, and the twist of this tale, then I have done my job right. This kind of story reminds us the power dynamic that exists in our world and how sometimes the unexpected happen when least expected. If you enjoy this, please don't forget to hit the like button. Share your thought in the comment, and of course subscribe to the channel for more stories that dig deep into the human experiences. Until next time, stay curious and stay inspired. I'll see you in the next video.